Aw yeah, Rivers here with some cool tech. You know I review a lot of Android mini PCs, or as I call them, amps to save time. So which one is the best? I've had so many people ask me that question, I thought I'd make a video comparing them. The thing is, each amp has different strengths and weaknesses, and none of them are completely perfect. So this is just my opinion, and different features might be more important to you depending on what you plan on doing with it. I put together a comparison of the most popular amps and other media players. I broke down my rating system into 4 categories. First off, speed. This not only includes benchmarks, but how quickly the UI performs. Second, software. This includes extra features like available ROMs and compatibility with apps. Third is hardware. This includes the ports on the device, if it includes a remote, heat issues, and storage options. And fourth, overall satisfaction. Was it useful? Was it easy to use? Did I enjoy using it from day to day? One thing to note is I'm judging all of these based on how they run and look with a 720p kernel. If they have a 1080p kernel available, that adds extra points in the software category. Also, even if a device runs a 720p kernel, it can output 1080p and still look good. First up, we have the iMeet MX1. Early on, this was one of the best Android mini PCs. It's always been one of my favorites too. It's nice and fast and runs very stable, so I'm giving it an 8 in the speed category. I'm giving the iMeet a 9 in software because there are some really good ROMs available for it. It also has a 1080p kernel option. As far as hardware goes, everything works pretty well, but the amount of ports is about average for the iMeet, so it gets a 7. You're going to want to get a USB hub if you have more than one device to hook up to the iMeet. Overall satisfaction, I give it an 8. I use it all the time and I like it. That gives us a total score of 32 for the iMeet MX1. I'll put a chart with all the scores in one place at the end of this video. Next up is the Zeals GK802. This guy's got a quad-core A9 processor, and it's really fast, so for speed I'm giving it a 9. The problem is it's got a different kind of CPU, so it's very hard to program ROMs for it. So there are almost no ROMs for it. It's still running Ice Cream Sandwich, and a lot of apps don't work with it, so for software it gets a 2. On the plus side, you can run Linux on this guy. There are a couple builds available. On the hardware side, it's got a couple ports, so it's about average, but it gets pretty warm, so I'm giving it a 6. For overall satisfaction, I can't use this one day to day because a lot of apps I like don't work on here, so I'm giving it a 2. That gives it a total score of 19. This guy is the MK808, and it's what started it all for the dual-core Android media players. It's been around for about 6 months now, but even by today's standards, it's nice and fast, so I give it an 8 for speed. For software, the MK808 gets a 10. There's so much software developed for it. There's Clockwork mod, there's Cyanogen mod, there's tons of great ROMs for it. Everything comes out first for this guy, so it's definitely gets a 10. It's got a really nice ROM out now in FreakTab. For hardware, I give it a 7. It's got a couple USB ports that work. Heat is not bad on it. You'll need a hub if you want to run storage devices like a hard drive off of it though. And it doesn't have Bluetooth. For that you'll need the MK808B. My overall satisfaction rating with the MK808 is a 9. People just keep making new software for it, so it's like getting a new device every time I install a new ROM. So that gives us a total score of 34 on the MK808. Next up is the Apple TV Generation 3. Now this guy is nice and fast, and all the apps on here are optimized for speed, so they run really smooth. You hardly ever have to wait for it, and when you do, it's usually for the internet. So I give it a 10 for hardware. Now the problem comes with the software. You can't install apps on your own unless you jailbreak it, and you can't jailbreak a version 3. You can jailbreak a version 2, but it costs quite a bit more than the version 3, and it's only 720p. So this is great for watching Netflix and YouTube and streaming from your iTunes playlist and mirroring your iDevices, but there's a major problem, and that is you can't install apps. Also, they seem to want you to pay for a lot of content that you can get other places cheaper. So for software, I'm giving the Apple TV a 5. The hardware on the Apple TV is really nice too. It comes with a good remote that gives you everything you need to use it. It's got built-in Wi-Fi that works really well, and then you've got an optical audio out, Ethernet going in, and of course your HDMI port that goes out to 1080p video. So for hardware, I give the Apple TV an 8. I rate my personal satisfaction with the Apple TV at a 5. I like it for YouTube and Netflix, but I find that I want to install apps on there all the time. If it had the ability to install apps, it'd be much, much better. I also like it for mirroring my iPad, but I don't have a lot of stuff in iTunes, so I really never use it for that. So my overall score for the Apple TV is a 28. Next up we have the B13 Mini PC. This guy is very similar to the iMeet MX1, except it's got a camera on here. Now the speed is good, I give it an 8 just like the iMeet MX1. Software I give a little bit lower because there's not really many ROMs developed for it, so I give software a 7. Hardware I give it a little bit higher than the iMeet. I give it an 8 because it's got a camera, a microphone, a headphones jack, and a flash mode button. My overall satisfaction with the B13 is pretty good. I give it a 6 just because I don't use it that much. There's not very many ROMs available for it, but it's a solid device. So that gives us an overall score for the B13 of 29. Next up we've got the Mini X Neo G4. And this guy is about average on speed, but I'm going to bump it up just a little bit because the ROM is so smooth on here. So I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8 for speed. Software on the G4 gets a 10 if you update to the latest version. The ROM is just so smooth, and it's got support for webcams and screenshots and power on and reset options all built right into the ROM, so it's really the perfect ROM. So I'm giving it a 10 for software. Hardware on the G4 is a little above average, mainly because it comes with a remote and it has good Wi-Fi. It's only got one USB port like most of the others, but you can expand that with a USB hub. So I'm giving it an 8 for hardware. Overall satisfaction is very good on the G4, so I'm giving it a 9, which makes a total score of 35. Next up, we've got the ProBox 2, which I give an 8 for speed. The ProBox software runs really solid, especially since it got updated to Jelly Bean, so I give it an 8 for that. I don't know of any custom ROMs for it, but it does come pre-rooted. The hardware on the ProBox 2 is its strong point. It comes with this awesome remote that's laid out really well, and it even has voice to text and a working power button on it. The ProBox 2 even has 2 full-size USB ports for running low-power peripherals, so you may not need to buy a USB hub. For hardware, the ProBox 2 gets a 9. My overall satisfaction with this unit is also a 9, so that brings the total score to 34 on the ProBox 2. Next up we've got the Tron Smart Prometheus. For speed I give it an 8, mainly because the mouse is nice and smooth and fluid moving, and it makes it feel nice and snappy. For software I give it a 9, mainly because Tron Smart's really good about updating their software. When they saw people wanted XBMC working, they went ahead and modified XBMC so it works on here. Also, they were the first to get Android 4.2 working on an Android Mini PC. On hardware, I give the Prometheus an 8. It's got the 3 USB ports, but they don't provide enough power to run an external hard drive with. On the plus side, at least it has a built-in power switch and Ethernet port. On overall satisfaction, I gave the Prometheus a 7. The hardware and software perform well, but I wish it was just a little bit less bulky. This gives the Prometheus a total score of 32. Here we have the Western Digital TV Live. This guy is not that fast. I'd probably give it a 4. What it does do well is play a lot of different video formats, especially if you attach them to a network computer or to a hard drive connected to it. It can play just about anything you throw at it. It comes with about 30 apps, just like the Apple TV, but just like the Apple TV, they're not upgradable and you can't install new apps without a firmware update coming from the manufacturer. So I give it a 5 on software. As far as ports go, it's got everything you'll need. Optical audio out, Ethernet, HDMI, front and back USB ports. It's got a nice, well-designed remote control. So for hardware, I give it a 7. It would get more if it was a little bit faster. I'd really like to see Western Digital build something just like this, except with a Snapdragon 600 CPU in it, running Android. I'd be willing to pay $200 or $300 for something that was nice and fast that had the hardware of this device. My overall satisfaction with the Western Digital Live is a 7, giving an overall score of 25. And finally, I've got the Minix Neo X5 here. The speed on this guy is good. I'd give it an 8. The ROM is really responsive and snappy. Plus, it's got an option to install a 1080p kernel. Software on the X5 is really well done. Everything works great on here, and it's nice and snappy. It even has an option to do mirroring with an extra app that they put in. Overall, I give the software on the X5 a 10. The hardware on the X5 is excellent. It's got all the buttons and ports that you'd need, just the perfect amount. It even comes with a small remote. But to get a perfect 10, it would need a perfect remote. So I added in the eGray AK64, which is a little bit better upgraded air mouse remote. The Minix X5 gets a 9 on hardware and a 10 in overall satisfaction because the software mixed with the great hardware makes it just a great unit. I use it myself all the time for watching Netflix and YouTube on my big screen TV. Here's the remotes that I use with the different media players. The 2 on the end there I bought separately, and I'll put links to them in the description down below. Here are a few accessories that you'll find you need when you get an Android Mini PC. First off, a 32 gig micro SD card is really nice to have. Also, a powered USB hub comes in very handy. USB to Ethernet adapters are very nice also, and later on you'll probably want a remote as well. Here's the table that I promised at the beginning of the video with all my ratings compared to each other. Well, I hope you enjoyed my roundup of all the different media players, and tell me what you think in the comments down below, and hit that little like button down there. It'll really help me out a ton, and make sure and subscribe to my channel. I'll keep you updated when all the new media players and Android devices, gadgets come out. You'll be the first to know. So thanks for watching, and as always, aloha.